The Royals made their first big trade of the offseason. They sent Brady Singer to Cincinnati in return for Jonathan India. So let's have a quick episode on it next on Locked On Royals.
You are Locked On Royals, your daily Kansas City Royals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are tuned in to a shortened edition of Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. As always, I'm your host, Jack Johnson, though I'm doing this episode from a garage in Texas, so don't have the usual platform here. I wasn't planning on doing an episode over the weekend, but when you're road tripping down, you're coming down for the holidays, and a trade like this goes down, you got to make with what you got. So what this will be today, or really just for this late hour show, early morning hour show, just a 15-minute episode here. We're not doing any breaks. We're not doing any reads. Just talking strictly about Brady Singer going to Cincinnati and the Royals getting Jonathan India in return. But if you're that first-time listener, you want to know a little bit more about me and this show, I'm based in Kansas City, not in Texas. This is a holiday trip for me, but we give you 5 episodes a week, Monday through Friday. Unless stuff like this goes down, then we got to get a little bit creative with maybe throwing in a quick recap video or a quick reaction video, which is just what this is going to be on the Jonathan India Brady Singer trade. The funny thing about this is when this trade went down, I was about 5 or 6 hours away from my destination. I've been driving for about maybe an hour, hour and a half, and then I started having some texts come in. My phone's blowing up that this deal actually had happened, and that's the worst possible thing, truly, is when a deal like this goes down and you're driving. So I'm the one driving. I don't have an opportunity to pull over. We were on a time limit there. We had to get down. So I'm just having people read me the information as it's coming through. And I'll be honest with you, the initial reaction I have to this is I'm surprised it only took Brady Singer to get Jonathan India in this type of deal. I know it was not a one-for-one deal. To me, it felt like the Royals might have been the one that were holding things up in the last couple of days, really going back to last Friday when going over a trade like this, because we had heard that, India and Brady Singer had been discussed, but there was no deal that was really close. And I almost wonder if the Royals were saying no to it because they wanted to have an additional player thrown into this conversation, which that other player ended up being Joey Wiemer, who used to be a top 100 prospect about 2 years ago. Hasn't definitely caught on at the big league level, but somebody that's got a lot of speed, great defense out in the outfield, can play all 3 outfield spots. So the Royals wanted that extra throw in there if they were going to be giving up Brady Singer, who they still really valued. But when it comes to Jonathan India, I think J.J. Picollo said it perfectly. This was all about the leadoff position. This was about getting a guy who was primed to lead off for this bunch. And I think Jonathan India, as we discussed in our Monday episode, he is somebody that is the perfect stereotypical leadoff hitter. He's somebody that's going to see a lot of pitches. He's somebody that's going to walk a lot. He's got the 5th best walk rate in all of baseball. He is 15th best in the league in pitches per plate appearance. And we brought up that stat on Monday's episode, where the leader for the Royals in 2024 was Vinny Pasquantino, who was 81st in the league in pitches per plate appearance. So Jonathan India gives you that different look at the top of the order, and he's not a rental. That's the other exciting part about this. He is somebody that can be in your lineup now for the next 2 to 3 years, and you feel good about what he could give you at the top of the order, because that, to me, was one of the biggest and most glaring issues of this 86-win ball club, is that they really just didn't get a tone setter at the top of the order. I think Jonathan India can be that tone setter. Is he the perfect player? He's well-rounded, a great offensive threat. I'm not going to go that far, but I'll always say this about guys that are great at drawing walks. It's easier for them to get through slumps, and when they're rolling, when they're hot, that's when they feel unstoppable, because they've already got that approach, that patient approach. They can see a lot of pitches. They want to get it to the next guy. And in Jonathan India's case, he's getting it to Bobby Witt Jr. So he's going from his situation in Cincinnati, which it wasn't a bad Reds team at all, but this felt like a very fair swap, in my opinion. Cincinnati needs some help in the rotation, even with getting Nick Martinez to accept that qualifying offer. They now add Brady Singer to that rotation. And for the Royals, they get a leadoff bat that can get on base at a very consistent level. Even last year, if you were a little bit whelmed by the numbers he brought up, you're still talking about a guy that would have had the second highest OBP on the Royals last year behind only Bobby Witt Jr. That's the type of player you're getting in Jonathan India. He's also a former first-round pick. He was a rookie of the year. And to me, I think the only knock on Jonathan India as a player is that he's a second baseman and he's a second baseman only. What does that mean for Michael Massey? What does that mean for Jonathan India? The good thing about J.J. Picollo and Scott Sharp and John Sherman, when deals like this happen, they're not caught off guard by a player's inability to play somewhere. This has certainly been something they've been thinking about. They have a plan in place about what to do with Jonathan India. And it might mean Michael Massey moving out to a corner outfield spot whenever Jonathan India is at second, or maybe Jonathan India has to learn a little bit of third base, or he has to learn a corner outfield spot. But I can guarantee you this, that the Royals are going to be flexible with it. The Royals players and personnel are not going to be reluctant to that change, because that's just the theme. That's the gut feel you get with this team, with the coaching staff, with the front office. If you're going to be in Kansas City, you're going to make things work for this lineup. You're not going to be somebody that says, I only play one spot and I'm not moving. I think Jonathan India will be somebody that could get some time at third base. Who knows? Maybe it's a corner outfield spot. But I don't think he's going to be somebody that comes in and they say, second base is yours. Michael Massey, you're going to go be a permanent left fielder, or you're going to be a permanent third baseman. I think there will be that mixing and matching a little bit. And that really excites me, because the bat I always liked. When we brought up this on Monday, we talked about Jonathan India. I loved the bat. I loved the data that he had, the underlying metrics, if you will. The defense wasn't a total liability for me, even though Michael Massey's better at second base. The bat is better than Michael Massey's. So when I got the comments of, well, Jonathan India is just Michael Massey 2.0, that's just not the case, right? He is top 5 in walk percentage for a reason. He's top 15 in pitches per plate appearance for a reason. He's got that part of his game down. He's got a good approach at the plate, and one that really no Royals hitter has right now. Not even Vinny Pasquantino, who's good at limiting the strikeouts and can see pitches. It's not at an elite level. Jonathan India does give you that. And the goal of this offense should be get it to Bobby Witt Jr., but you need somebody who's that tone setter at the top half of the order, and Jonathan India is that. I love the aggression. I love that now in back-to-back years, J.J. Picollo has said what he was going to go after, and he didn't waste any time with it. He went straight to Cincinnati. They worked on this deal. They've been working on this deal for the last week, and they finally get it done. And the Royals didn't have to package anybody. They didn't have to send Chris Bubich in this deal. They didn't have to send Alec Marsh. So now it still gives you some resources to go out there and maybe try to make a trade for a Taylor Ward or an Alec Bohm, two other guys they've been interested in. Maybe you want to throw your money now at another starter, because there is an opening now in the rotation, and I have a gut feeling that they'll be looking to go for somebody to fill that number 4 spot. I don't see it being likely that Chris Bubich and Alec Marsh will just go be penciled into those spots. I think the Royals understand that getting Jonathan India was a great thing for this offense, but I remember J.J. Picollo has always said, to get a good player, you got to give up a good player. You got to give up somebody that you like. And obviously, they love Brady Singer. They love what he's been able to do for this club since being drafted. He was seen as a guy that came in and could have been a frontline starter. That didn't really work out, but good for him that he finished his Kansas City career on a high note, that he was one of the mainstays in that rotation, and a rotation that was one of the best in all of baseball. He was reliable. You could count on him. And I think that's where J.J. Picollo is going to be smart about this. You can try to make Chris Bubich a starter, and you can try to give Alec Marsh another opportunity to win a job in spring training, but you also have to replace the production that Brady Singer gave you. And Chris Bubich and Alec Marsh have not shown in their big league career they can replace production like that. So does it mean Michael Lorenzen is going to get a 1-year deal back in Kansas City? Do you go bigger and really try to give somebody a 2-year deal, maybe worth $15 million a year? Because now, since you got a key part of this offense solved, it feels like, with the leadoff bat, a guy that can get on base, you still need another bat for that lineup. Now you can turn your attention to adding some more help for the starting rotation. And I do envision the Royals doing that. But this is an aggressive front office. When they seek out guys, they don't really wait around and see how the market plays out. The Royals, the last 2 years, have been the team to kind of set the trend, to get things going. I mean, we're so soon to forget that Michael Wacha was one of the first guys that was signed to an extension this offseason. The Royals wasted no time in making sure that Michael Wacha was going to get taken care of. And then you hear at the end of the season press conference, which that was before they'd signed Michael Wacha, hey, we need a leadoff bat. We need a middle of the order bat. We got to get that situation solved. It took until November 22nd to strike a deal on that. A little under a month, I think it was, to go out there and get that leadoff bat. And this is before the winter meetings, right? So before the winter meetings, you already solve one of your problems. You already solved one of the issues that you had. And it allows you now to sit back a little bit and evaluate some other options out there. And those options could be through free agency. You got money to spend there. It could be through trade again. You could look in-house. But getting that deal done now, I think, allows you some space. You got a little bit of a buffer here, where some teams, they might feel the pressure now of, man, if the Royals are already going after guys like Jonathan India and are willing to make trades like that, we need to jump on that. So you now have checked off a box that was at the top of your priority list, finding a leadoff bat, finding a high OBP guy, and now you can evaluate some other guys. If it's free agency, you can see how the market plays out a little bit. When it comes to the rotation and replacing somebody like Brady Singer, you can see how that plays out. So for that, I'm very excited about it. And seeing the 1-2 punch of Jonathan India and Bobby Witt Jr., I think that it is going to significantly help both of those guys, because Jonathan India, even if he's hitting 230, 235, he's going to be getting on base maybe the second best on the team, or maybe the third best at worst. He's just somebody that's going to draw a lot of walks, and he doesn't strike out at all. That, to me, if you were to craft a leadoff hitter, it's Jonathan India. And again, the positions don't really matter to me at this point in time. What matters to me is the offensive threat that he could be giving you. So I love that this type of deal was basically a 1-for-1, but the Royals did find a way to add an extra player in this, and that was Joey Wiemer. As I told you, a former top 100 guy. I'm not going to hold Joey Wiemer to any sort of standard here. I actually thought when the trade came out, I think it was Robert Murray that spoke on this first, that Joey Wiemer was being traded to the Royals. I thought he was a non-tender guy, and the Royals were going to be sending something Milwaukee's way, but nothing too crazy. And then we find out Joey Wiemer was actually the guy that was included in the deal with Jonathan India. But a very young big league career so far. He hasn't really caught on. He played for 2 teams last year in Milwaukee and Cincinnati. Still, in the minor league level, he was somebody that could draw a good amount of walks. I'm sure that was something that intrigued the Royals. And you look at the Baseball Savant page, if you're into stuff like that, he is somebody that's got a lot of speed for his size, which is around 6'4", 230 pounds. And he also is a pretty good defender out there in the outfield. So those things absolutely had to intrigue the Royals and be beneficial to them. So, you know, the sprint speed, 83rd percentile, some of the numbers at the big league level haven't really translated. The arm value is pretty average. The outs above average is below average at this point. But I think at the minor league level, that was something that stuck out to them, along with the walk rate to be thrown in for a deal like this. Plus, he's only 25 years old. You got that outfield depth, which we've talked about before on this episode, or many episodes on this podcast, I should say. And that, for one, is why I believe the Royals really liked adding a guy like Joey Wiemer in this deal with Jonathan India. But you only send Brady Singer, a guy that was probably the #1 trade chip for the Royals. And I think your offense got better. And now it puts you in the market to go out there and spend a little bit in free agency on another starter for the rotation. But I think it's a great deal for both sides. It's a valuable deal for both sides. I think the Royals got better. And it just shows you once again how serious and how aggressive J.J. Picollo can be as acting GM and president of baseball operations for this ball club. Well, that's going to do it for a shortened edition of Locked On Royals. We usually just do 5 episodes a week, But since there was this trade, I wanted to give at least a 15-minute episode with no breaks, no reads, to give you guys my thoughts on this type of deal. So if anything else happens, either tomorrow or Sunday, might find time to squeeze in another 15-minute episode. But until Monday, which should be the plan, you take it easy, Kansas City.